Gentlemen, Mike Beer taking a look at race number 8 at Churchill Downs on Derby Day Saturday, the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile, going a one-turn at Churchill Downs. $600,000 is the purse. Some very, very promising 3-year-olds and a full field of them at that. Let's take a look at the Pat Day Mile group. Top Connor, the number 8, an impressive debut winner for Chad Brown. They threw him to the wolves last time out in the bluegrass, and he set a very fast pace before tiring. Class relief, distance relief. That sounds good.
Yeah, those things do sound good. Not a terrible performance in the bluegrass. They asked an awful lot of him, Dan. Didn't work out. It seems like he's got a ton of talent. We'll see if this is the right spot, though. I mean, they're asking a lot of him again. This is not an easy spot.
He's the morning line favorite. He's got speed. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. They're expecting Top Connor to show that speed, but they're also expecting a fast pace because of the number 11's presence. That is Vlahos, who was a very fast debut winner, going 6.5 furlongs at Santa Anita, earned a 98 buyer. He's going to be part of this pace.
Yeah, I don't see how they could try to take his speed away from him here. I didn't really see Top Connor being part of this pace. That I think he's a perfectly handy and rateable horse. I don't think he's going to be getting involved in some kind of pace duel here. So I do think that the 11 will go, though. I think the 2 inside horses are both going to show speed in this race, particularly Carbone, the horse on the rail. I mean, that horse is pretty fast.
That horse has pretty fast. I think he can work out a pretty good trip from the inside post under Christian Torres. He won his first 2 starts by a combined 12 lengths, Mike, and then they tried him in tough spots. The Southwest and the Rebel, they cut him back to a mile, a 2-turn mile in the Hot Springs last time out. He ran okay, the number 1 Carbone, but he was just no match for Nash. He's got to deal with that guy again.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a real issue for him. I'm tempted to try to get him in there somewhere in this race because I do think he's talented enough, and I do think shorter. And I know it's still a mile, but a 1-turn mile, a little bit different. I feel like these are the kinds of races that he might be meant for, and so I want to stay positive on him. Listen, he's got a lot of ground to make up on Nash. They didn't go aggressively in that race last time. He was sort of under a pull there, like maybe he wanted to go. I feel like this time they can just turn him loose from the rail and see what happens. He might not be good enough, but I'll use this horse if he's a big price.
I think his most impressive race was his debut, his one race going 1 turn, and I like him, like you, going 1 turn. I think he'll turn out to be a 6 furlong to 1 mile horse around 1 bend, and he's a good price. He has talent. Beeline is the number 2. This horse is a perfect 2 for 2. He was a very impressive debut winner at Gulfstream. Then he had to dig down deep to win this race. The Hutchison last time out, going 3/4 of a mile. He showed good speed from the beginning. He's going to hold on to win by a nose, and the 3rd place finisher would come back to win the Illinois Derby with an 85 buyer.
And they've been very aggressive with him in his first 2 starts, and he's held on at the end. But he's going to start drifting a little bit late in this race, which I don't love, but he digs in. He holds on. This horse has run really well in both of his starts. That I have no knocks on this horse, but this feels like a tough spot.
Usually a race like the Pat Day, a race like the Woody Stevens later on in the spring and into the summer, they're full of speed horses, but they're also mingled with horses that are cutting back in distance that could benefit from a fast pace. And I wonder if Northern Flame, the 3, is one of those horses. He showed speed in the Rebel. He showed speed in a very fast-paced edition of the Jeff Ruby Stakes last time out, but now he's cutting back in distance. And I wonder if he can settle and finish under Julien Leparoux. I like this kind of route to 1-turn mile move.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I do think this horse has something to prove in this kind of a race. So we'll see if he can up his game just a little bit. But I'm with you. I feel like cutting back on it. They tried to get this horse into the Derby. It just didn't really work out. He wasn't quite good enough to do that. But he's run some good races. I don't know. He's got the 1 win there, the allowance win 3 starts back where they just put him on the lead. That's not going to work in here. He's just going to have to find a way to do better than that with a different kind of a trip.
Otto the Conqueror is the number 4. He won 3 of his first 4 starts for trainer Steve Asmussen, including 2 victories at Churchill Downs. He showed speed in the Southwest. He tired that day. That was the day Mystic Dan exploded. They ran him in the Hot Springs last time out. He was kind of just dull, I thought, from the start, Mike. It looked like they tried to rate the break with him, and he never fired.
Yeah, I think they tried to do something a little different with him last time because they had been so aggressive with him, gotten involved on paces in his his first 4 or 5 starts. They tried it a different way last time. I'm with you, man. I didn't think that he ran that well with that change in running style. So we'll see if they decide to get aggressive again, because that's certainly a possibility. And I don't know if that's going to work out for him either. He seems like a horse who's got a lot to prove at this point.
Like Northern Flame sees the Gray as a horse that's cutting back in distance. Unlike Northern Flame, he's shown the ability to rate and pass horses in the stretch, which could be very beneficial if this pace is hot. They tried him in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He ran fine against Endlessly. The Bluegrass was a little bit too tough for him. He fits better against these kind of horses. Maybe he'll get a setup for Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, I like the fact that he can just sort of maybe sit back and make one run. I do kind of wish he'd made some kind of a run into the Bluegrass last time. Not that I expected him to win or be effective in there, but there was a big pace in that race, and he really didn't do that much. So I was a little disappointed in that, but I did like some of his earlier races.
Guanare, the number 6, won 3 in a row earlier, late last year and into this year, including a 3-horse edition of the spectacular bid going 7 furlongs. He disappointed at odds on in the city of brotherly love. He was claimed out of his last race for $100,000. Maybe that track was kind of favoring speed and worked against Guanare a little bit, but to me, I think he has to step up his game.
Yeah, he's going to have to step up his game quite a bit too. We'll see. I mean, he's got a couple of figures that I guess you could look at and say they give him some kind of a chance. So he's got so much working against him, Dan. And then you throw in that they just claimed him from Dutrow. That's not going to be an easy thing to get away with.
One of the horses that hit the board against him last time returned to run second in a first level allowance with an 85 buyer. Houday won his first 4 starts. This is a very likable Ohio bred who ran in the Lafayette last time out at Keeneland, and he's a late runner that just didn't get any pace. This race was controlled from the get-go by the winner. Houday sort of had to sit off of it, Mike, and all in all, he tries really hard once he gets clearance down towards the inside to get second.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty good performance because you're right. I feel like even his rider thought there's got to be more pace than that, and that is going to turn out in this race. They grabbed him from the start and just sort of ripped him back off the pace, and then they didn't go in front of him. I thought he actually did really well just to get second in here. His first, I know he was facing weaker competition to start his career. He looked good to me winning those races. I think this horse can run.
Top Connor can run as well. He's your morning line favorite, debut winner going a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream Park. They stretched him out in the Bluegrass. He just went a very, very fast pace on the lead while being pressured by a very talented horse in Just a Touch. All in all, yeah, he got tired in the last 16th of a mile. It's understandable. It was only his second lifetime start.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. I mean, you can't really hold it against him. I still hate that they ran him in that race, but they took their shot. It didn't work out, and now they'll come back here. This isn't an easy spot either. I think this horse is good, though, Dan. I mean, his debut, I know it was only a maiden race, a 1-turn mile Gulfstream. Maybe there wasn't that much in there. This horse won that race like a horse who has a ton of talent and a ton of potential. They paid a lot of money for him. I'm expecting him to run a lot better in this race.
Frosty Indulgence, the number 9, rallied from left field to win his career debut over the all-weather at Turfway. He finished directly behind Houday last time out in the Lafayette. Now, Houday was likely compromised by the lack of pace in this race. Frosty Indulgence did not break well at all, then sort of pulled his way forward to sort of track the pace, and I think that kind of sapped his stretch kick. This time around, I think you just take him back and make one run. At 30-1, I could try to sneak him into the number somewhere.
That's a good. I think that's a really good way to look at it, Dan. I mean, if you just look at it directly on paper, you feel like, well, he got up close to a relatively slow pace, and he just didn't really do much. But you're right; he didn't break great in there, and then he had to sort of rush up. It worked against him. I still would rather have Houday out of that race, but this horse would be a much better price.
Gettysburg Address is the number 10. They tried him in the Wood Memorial last time out. He was 51-1 and ended up being walked off of the track. It was just simply too much. For a horse that looked good in his career debut at Ellis Park, going 3/4 of a mile, showed some fine tactical speed in that race, but off his last couple of efforts, he's really hard to endorse.
Yeah, I just thought he was hard to like in here. Even if you don't want to hold the Wood Memorial against him, you don't have to, but he didn't really do any running in there, and he's hard to recommend off of what he did prior to that.
Vlahos is the number 11, super impressive debut winner. Nobody knew. He was 13-1, and Vlahos just ran a hole in the wind. Let's watch that performance. It did seem like Speed was doing very, very well at Santa Anita this day, but he got to the front. He went 21-2, 43-3. He doesn't stop. He beat a couple of next out winners, 1 or 2 of them that earned very good Buyer speed figures. Maybe this guy's the real deal first time for Doug O'Neill.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm glad you pointed that out too, Dan. I mean, you go back and look at the horses that he beat, and they have come back to run well out of that race, and basically confirmed the figure that this horse ran. If he can run a 98 against this field, he's going to be tough. I mean, it's not going to be easy for him to do it. Stretching out to a mile in this race against a way better field, off of the 98. I don't think you can really expect him to run the 98 again, but if he does, he's tough in here.
Completing the field is Nash, and there was a lot of hype surrounding Nash after he won his maiden at Churchill Downs by the length of the stretch, going 2 turns. And maybe he's just not a 2 turn horse. They tried Track Phantom in the Gun Runner and in the Lecomte. He was a little disappointing over a sloppy track. So Brad Cox turned him back and dropped him in class to a 2 turn mile, the Hot Springs, and he ran very, very well. Let's watch Nash, who settled off with a pace, made a sweeping move on the turn to take command, and with those big long strides, widens in the stretch. The third place finisher likely found this distance a little bit too far, but he would then come back to run second in a shorter race, the Bachelor, with a respectable 91 buyer.
Yeah, exactly. The figure that Nash earns in here is not going to blow you away, but he's just ridden out in that race. I mean, I don't think you really care about the figure because he's got faster races to get to, and it kind of feels like the deal with this horse is they tried to make him a distance horse, and it's not going to quite work out. He's better going shorter. That's what his dam was. His dam was a really good horse, but she didn't want to stretch out. This is the right race to run this horse in.
Just take a look at our top picks. It's the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile. You're going with Top Connor, Mike. That debut, there was just something there when you watched it. It just leaked potential, just the
Yeah.
way he finished that race. And you can't hold the bluegrass against him. I'm curious to see if he's going to be a little bit speed crazy. I don't think he is. Personally, I think they let Vlahos go and try to get outside that horse.
Exactly. That's how I looked at him too, Dan. I mean, he does have speed, but when you go back and watch his debut, I mean, he broke in that race, but he came right to hand in there. They let somebody else take the lead, sat off of it. So I think that trip is available to him in this race. Like you, I was just really taken with his debut, and I feel like he has a chance to be a really good horse. I'm not going to sit here and suggest that I'd love to bet him at some kind of short price in here, but I think he's a good horse, and I'm taking him on top.
I think the shorter distances is better for Nash, and I also think with his running style, he can fall into a good trip outside in the clear in the second flight or so. And we'll see if he could duplicate that sweeping move that worked so well for him last time out at Oaklawn. Like you, I want to use Who Day at a price in my single race exotics. 8, 7, 12, 1 for Mike, 12, 11, 7, 8 for me, and the Pat Day 1 turn mile at Churchill Downs on Derby Saturday. Good luck.